Hi, good morning everyone. Teng Boo from Capital Dynamics again. Hope you had a good week. For those of you who are watching the stock markets, you will know that it has been extremely volatile, and not just in America, but everywhere across the world. And I guess the main factor that caused the global financial markets to be in turmoil is the unusual tariff policy from the United States of America. So for today, for the next 1 or 2 weeks, we will talk about, it's an update of what I have produced on the 8th of March 2025, where I asked the question, will President Trump create another global depression? So this, in a way, is an update, but a more detailed update of that video. So for this week, it will be part 1. We will want to talk about what it is that Trump wants to make America great again and what it really means. And I will share my views, my opinions of what MAGA, or Make America Great Again, and talk about Project 2025 to uncover Trump's true agenda. The next video, we will explore Trump's aggressive strategy and how his tariff strategy ties in with his bigger plan. That is for the next video. So please don't miss this 2 parts. And as usual, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And more importantly, is to share. Because what I present in our YouTube channel is typically something that is different from what you hear from elsewhere. And as always, we do our research, we present our views based on facts. And we asked, a few days before this video, we asked you all whether you think the United States is bullying everyone. Well, the answers that we got were 100% yes. There was not a single one who said no. President Trump, has been identified with this very overused, super stale, and unoriginal face of Make America Great Again, MAGA. In fact, Trump was not the first person to use this phrase. It was Ronald Reagan who used this phrase during his 1980 presidential campaign. Nevertheless, I think what is important is whether the majority of people knows what Trump's MAGA really means. It is not, for example, it's not just about bringing America, it's not about bringing manufacturing jobs back to America. It's much more than that. And many of his objectives are pretty sinister in nature. So I will try to give you an objective explanation of what Trump is trying to do. According to Britannica, the encyclopedia, the MAGA movement was founded on the belief that the United States was once a great country, great within quotation mark, but has lost this status owing to foreign influence within its borders via immigration and multiculturalism, and externally via globalization, or the increased integration of national economies all over the world. So the followers of MAGA think that this fall from grace can be reversed through policies which are America first, which will provide a greater degree of economic protectionism, reduce immigration greatly, particularly from developing countries, and encourage or enforce what the members of MAGA consider to be traditional American values. I think Britannica sums it up very, very accurately, very nicely. So the core objective of President Trump is simple. Is to make the United States of America conservative again. Back in the good old days, the 50s, the 60s, or even before that, the United States of America can be summed up in this manner. It's defined by, a great America is defined by an economy and society that is dominated by male, the whites, and Christians. So Trump's MAGA objectives are actually that simple, to remake America along those traditional conservative lines. However, to make his MAGA dream widely acceptable to all Americans and to the rest of the world, Trump and his team has to dress it up, so that it doesn't look so racist, bigoted, and jingoistic. It is Trump's methods that are complex and cunning, some of which I believe are intentional, while some are not. So first thing, have you ever thought about a United States of America where the majority of Americans are not white? In 2022, the white Americans, the non-Hispanic group, made up 58.9% of the American population. That is down substantially from 69.4% in 2000. In just 22 years, the percentage of white Americans dropped by nearly 11 percentage points. That is a lot, as you can see from the facts. So, in that 22 years, the share of the population that is Hispanic, Latino, grew the most. And the share of the white, non-Hispanic population had the biggest fall, dropping 10.5 percentage points to 58.9%. For Trump, this is not right, because at this rate, America will be full of non-whites. At the same time, America's population is aging fast, right? The share of population from 0 to 4 years old has dropped more than 1 percentage point in that 22 years, while the share of population that is 65 and older has increased substantially from 12.4% in 2000 to 17.3% in 2022. And by the way, this may shock you, the increase in the population that is 65 and older, that share is increasing faster in America than in China. These are facts. What we have to do is to project to 2050, which is 25 years from now. Hispanic Americans would have the most population growth, while the American white population is expected to decline by 11%. So what it means is that non-white Americans will make up the majority of America's population by 2050. Now, if you were Trump and his supporters, you'd be worried, you'd be damn scared. You'd be saying that, look, something is wrong with America. I got to make America great again. While most Hispanics speak English proficiently, more than 2/3 speak Spanish at home. 9% of Black Americans speak non-English at home, and 68% of Asian Americans speak a non-English language at home. If you're Chinese, you speak probably Cantonese Mandarin. If you're Indian, probably you speak Tamil, you speak Hindi. Can you imagine? So Trump basically wants to make America great again by making sure that white Americans remain the majority, or better still, the only race in the United States. America is not a melting pot of cultures. America never was. America is a country built on a racially layered society. Do you know there was only in 1965, when President Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act in 1965, and in the 1966 Supreme Court decision in the Harper versus Virginia Board election case, that the black Americans were able to vote in the same way as the white Americans. That is only recently. I'm not surprised. Trump wants to make English official language of the United States. He signed this executive order making English the official language of the United States and rescinded the previous policy. You know, during his presidential campaign in 2024, Trump referenced non-English languages while calling for stricter immigration policies. I'm quoting him, it's the craziest thing. They have languages that nobody in this country has ever heard of. It's a horrible thing, he told his supporters in February 2024. And US labor force is becoming more diverse, definitely. The share of white non-Hispanics is expected to fall from 73% in 2000 to only 53% in 2050. And of course, the share of Hispanics is expected to increase, in fact, more than double. The same is going to be seen with the black Americans and Asians. The fastest growing group in the US labor force is expected to increase, is expected to more than double by 2050. Then, on another issue about the role of women in American society, Republicans want to bring American women back to what it was like in the 1950s. From abortion to birth control to a no-fault divorce, female autonomy could be utterly demolished when Donald Trump returns to power, which this is a quote, this is based on an article in Vanity Fair written in July 2024, which most of it have all happened. It's not just Trump, it's Vance, it's his entire cabinet. I show you two photos, pictures paints 1,000 words. On your left-hand side is America in the 1950s, where the women work at home, housewives. Now, American women are working in the office. So this Molly Jong has got it right when she wrote, right, in Vanity Fair last year. There's a party headed by a thrice married adulterer was involved in payoffs to both a Playboy playmate and a porn film star, and who is running on a platform of bringing women's rights back to a pre-1960 America. If you look at the facts, of course, the Republicans, the conservative Republicans, are worried. In 1972, Katharine Graham was the first female CEO of an American Fortune 500 company when she assumed leadership of the Washington Post. By now, there are more than 40, 50, 70. In March 2022, there were 74 female CEOs in America's 500 biggest companies. The dramatic increase in the labor force participation rate of women during this period was accompanied by many social, economic, and demographic changes in the status of women. Now, American women remain single more often. Of those who married, many did so later in their life, and the median age at the first marriage has increased substantially. That means they're marrying much later. Women elected to stay in school longer, achieving higher education attainment than in the past, and pursuing better paying careers. So in other words, the American women are now becoming more independent of the American male. Women postponed childbirth to older ages and had fewer children than in previous decades. Women tended to enter the labor force even before their children started school. That means the children had to be sent to childcare and were able to maintain longer job tenure than in previous periods. More shockingly, women got divorced more often. Americans got divorced more often. And this in itself increased their labor force participation rate. So if you're a conservative Republican, a person like Trump, or members of his team, these trends are scary because they believe that these trends make America fall from her grace. What about the second part? America with fewer and fewer Christians. Immigration has been the major source of America's growing population and growing diversity. They tend to be in younger age groups with higher labor force participation rates. And because many come from high fertility societies, they have considerably higher fertility rates than those of the resident American population. And this factor has contributed in a large part to the growing diversity of US population, the US demographic profile. This growing diversity means an America that's less white, less Christian. You have to look at Trump 1.0, Trump 2.0 in this context where he wants to ensure America stays white. You know, despite the separation of church and the state, American Christianity has always played a significant political role through America's history and remains an important part of US politics today. As at 2023, more than 86% of the 534 members of US Congress practice Christianity, a percentage which is larger than the American public. Now, this was written before he became president. Should Trump reclaim presidency in November 2024, which he did, hardline conservative Christians say it would represent a historic opportunity to put their interpretation of Christianity at the center of US government policy, which, as we know now, is happening at a very rapid pace.
Are you tired of doing investment research on stock markets? Want to spend time on your hobbies or go out with your friends instead? Introducing iCapital, where you can get independent, objective, and comprehensive investment advice on the go. Available in English and Mandarin and can be accessed via app, website, and print copy. We provide thorough, first-hand research-based findings on listed companies, economies, and stock markets, and clear perspective of how markets interact and how they influence investments, as well as provide Malaysian and global stock recommendations, stock portfolios with outstanding performance to follow. Subscribe now to iCapital for stock news. From only 49 ringgit a year, start investing like a fund manager. Subscribe now at www.icapital.biz.
Among the proposals pushed by the Christian rights, among their various groups and leaders, they want to remove the word gender. They want to remove abortion from federal program documents. They want to impose new restrictions on abortion pills. They want to carve out greater exemption to anti-discrimination laws intended to protect LGBTQ people. They want to establish a more visible role for Christianity in public schools, including more prayers led by both teachers and students. This is what the Christian right wants from a second Trump term, and this is what they're getting. Trump also told evangelicals that he would enable them to yield power at a level that you have never used before. He told the Association of Religious Broadcasters in February 2024, we have to bring back our religion, we have to bring back Christianity in this country. According to quote a scholar of religion's role in American politics and society, Stephen Protero, he said, the religious right is the pawn and MAGA is the king. So you cannot distinguish the Christian conservatism from the secular MAGA political movement. I hope you can see the charts. I hope you can see them, but the trend is clear. The number of Christians in America has dropped. In the latest 2023-2024 study by the Pew Research Center, they found that 62% of US adults call themselves Christians in that 2023-2024 survey, a significant drop from 2007, where 78% of Americans identify themselves as Christians. So in that 2027, in that 17 years, there's a drop from 78% to only 62%. Can you imagine if that trend continues? There will be fewer and fewer Christians in America, fewer and fewer whites in America. The rise of the religious unaffiliated, the so-called nuns, they've climbed and they've sort of plateaued for the moment. But at 29%, that is very high, because in that 29%, 5% are atheists, 6% are agnostic, and 19% have nothing in particular. So American adults who were raised as Christians but no longer identify themselves as Christian have also surged. As you can see, based on the same survey by Pew Research Center, 80% were raised as Christians, only 58% remain as Christians, 22% are no longer Christian. You look at other factors, right? This is younger, you see the trouble is the younger American adults are more likely than the older Americans to live Christianity, right? So if you combine all these circular trends and factors, the trend of what America is like from a religion and racial makeup is clear. You can see those who were born in the 1940s or earlier, those who are age 74 and above, they were raised as Christian. 89% were raised as Christian. And 76% remain as Christian. That is still very high. Now you move to the right-hand side, to the right column, where those who are aged 18 to 24, born in 2000 to 2006, 67% were raised as Christians, but only 41% have remained as Christians. So the dropout rate among the younger American Christians is high. So the trouble is this: when you merge religion and politics into one, when the state and the church merge into a singular set of beliefs and practices, the country gets to be a very troublesome country, not just for the people of that country, but for the entire world. This is what makes America a big bully to everyone. This is why America, under a conservative Republican president like Donald Trump, is a threat to the entire country and the entire world. The Pew Research found that the most religious Americans, which are essentially Christians, are also conservative Republicans. Now, a major part of MAGA and Project 2025 concerns Trump's obsession with America's trade deficit and therefore America's trade policy. I hope you can see this, right? This is US-China trade war, where on the left-hand side you start with 2019, and here you end up with more recently, where the tariff imposed on Chinese exports have gone up. Well, it's now at the latest, the Chinese exports have to pay a total of 145%. I've come now to Project 2025. What is this about? It is a wide-ranging set of conservative to ultra-conservative recommendations regarding US government structure and policy, as well as a plan of action for immediate implementation when a conservative government becomes the governing party. Critics of Project 2025 have argued that the structure and policy changes it calls for would create an authoritarian and Christian nationalist state by massively expanding presidential power and aggressively promoting conservative Christian values. This Project 2025 is a very thick document. It's almost 900 pages. If you want to read it, by all means, but it is thick. It is basically trying to rescue, the goal is to rescue the country from the grip of what they call as the radical left. So the project calls for an end to illegal immigration, which Trump has already promised, has already launched. Project 2025 also supports shutting down the Department of Education.
And I'm going to close the Department of Education and move education back to the states. And we're going to do it fast.
In 2023, Peter Navarro, Trump's chief trade advisor, current chief trade advisor, wrote a 30-page policy paper entitled The Case for Fair Trade that urged the next Republican president to take aim at those countries that have relatively large trade deficits with the US and apply high tariffs. Navarro wrote that China, India, the EU, Vietnam, Thailand, Taiwan, Japan, and Malaysia all belong in this category and should be targeted with big tariffs. So you saw the tariff that Trump announced under his Liberation Day. Malaysia got hit, Vietnam, Thailand all got hit by high tariff rates. Now, Navarro's plan for trade were the basis for half a chapter of Project 2025. He wrote about non-reciprocal tariffs and called for the onshoring of manufacturing currently offshore by American MNCs. Ex-Project 2025 chief says Trump's actions, which are basically based on Navarro's suggestions, are beyond his wildest dreams. So, who is this Navarro? He is possibly one of the most hawkish person on China. And he wrote a book in 2011 called Death by China, as you can see on the right-hand side. And that book is, I mean, why must the book cover be portrayed in that manner, where you see the knife stabbing on the American flag and all the blood coming out? I think that if you are a nobody, it's okay you write a book like that. You are now a chief trade policy advisor to Donald Trump, and you're supposed to have a qualified PhD economics qualification, which, of course, Elon Musk totally sort of brush off. That Elon Musk called Navarro a moron. So when Trump announced his Liberation Day on 2nd April, I told you, the 8 trading partners named were all the countries that Navarro named. Navarro emphasized the importance of Trump focusing on China and achieving American greatness, and blasted the WTO. Of course, Elon Musk and Navarro the two of them have been clashing, but recently Elon Musk has been very silent. I'm not sure why. So this is what Navarro wrote, addressing the challenge from China, right? And the WTO would go a long way towards restoring American greatness, both economically and militarily. You know, now Trump has announced a 90-day pause so that America can negotiate with, apparently, that's what they claim, 70 countries. Now, what is reciprocal tariffs? For Peter Navarro and for America, reciprocal tariffs is very, very wide. It covers literally everything that America can throw inside. So, with Vietnam negotiating with US now, you know what Navarro says? Because Vietnam offers zero tariff. You mean you cannot have minus negative tariff, right? The lowest you can go is zero tariff. You know what Navarro says? It means nothing, because it's the non-tariff cheating that matters. You mean only Vietnam cheats? You mean America doesn't cheat? I already shown you a few months ago a 4-part series on what really makes America great. In one of my videos, if you can go back and see that I mentioned that America is a smuggler's nation. You can read the book by Peter Andres, a professor, an American professor, who says greatness is built on smuggling in the wider sense. So Vietnam offers you zero under this reciprocal tariff arrangement, and Navarro says, no, I want to look at currency manipulation, I want to look at cheating, and the whole long list of items that doesn't comply with WTO. You know, Trump and his gang loves to talk about the use of tariffs by Alexander Hamilton. He was America's first Treasury Secretary, and by President McKinley. America has got a long history of trade deficits. This chart is excellent. It shows you America's trade deficit from 1800 up to now. In that part, 1800, Alexander Hamilton was the first Treasury Secretary even before that. And then McKinley was towards the end of the 19th century. America at that time was a developing country. America was still very agricultural, using a lot of slaves, and trying to develop a manufacturing sector. So America was trying to compete with Britain, Europe, and therefore they had to use tariff to protect their nascent manufacturing sector and even the agricultural sector. But you look at America now, it has been suffering deficit since the 1960s. You are using, and Trump and his team, or these people who are asking for high tariffs and to get away from WTO, you are using the logic that you apply in the 19th century when America was a developing country to an America now, which is the most powerful country, the biggest economy in the world. I mean, this is what developing countries like Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, China are in now. We are all developing countries. We were like what America was in the 19th century. So therefore, we need tariffs to protect our industries. What kind of fair trade is Navarro talking about? Fair to who? These countries, Malaysia, Vietnam, India, Indonesia, China, these countries have to suffer severely from the exploitation of the Western imperial powers, from the colonial powers. Our economies were pygmified. In the case of India, by Britain. In the case of China, by quite a number of foreign powers. In the case of Malaysia, Vietnam, by France, by Netherlands, Malaysia, by Britain. And we cannot use tariff that you used 200 years ago for the same protectionist reason. You know, I'm fully convinced that the claims by Trump, Navarro, and many other imperialists that countries are cheating and exploiting the United States are completely inaccurate. For me, the reverse is true, that the developing countries in South and Latin America, Africa, Middle East, and developing Asia are the ones who have been exploited. And we have been exploited for such a long time. So I fervently believe that Donald Trump will totally fail to make America great again. And if he and his team keep believing in their own jingoistic propaganda and implement policies based on this falsity, Donald Trump is actually accelerating the decline of the United States. That's my belief. Just to share with you, to make it a bit more lighthearted, when Trump and his team talks about MAGA, they should know and be aware of what it means in Nigerian pidgin. MAGA, which of course stands for Make America Great Again, in Nigerian pidgin means easily fooled idiot. English is the official language of Nigeria, but pidgin, which is a simplified version of a language, is commonly used throughout Nigeria. So Nigerian pidgin is a mixture of English and Creole, can it varies from region to region, right? So, for instance, according to this online Nigerian Pidgin English dictionary, it provides a different definition for the word MAGA. According to this online dictionary, MAGA means really mess up, and loser is a synonym for MAGA. So President Trump, Mr. Navarro, and the whole gang, maybe you might want to take a look at this because it might come true. So, for those of you who have listened to me, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you find it informative, educational, and make sure you stay for part 2 next week, where we will focus on America's aggressive tariff strategy. And like I said, share your comments. Whether you agree, you don't agree, please share. And share with your friends, with your people that you know, so that we can spread the message, the truth message, to more and more people. With that, I hope you have a good weekend. Thank you very much.